Hey, security world. This is Courtney Sparkman, CEO and founder of OfficerReports.com. If there are two things that I learned owning my own security guard company, one is make sure you read every contract page for page, word for word. And second, make sure you have the proper insurance in place for your security guard company. And with that in mind, why don't we check in with one of the best security guard insurance brokers out there to see what's new? Let's do it. So Fred, thanks for jumping on with me this afternoon. Really appreciate it. For those people out here who are not in the know as to who you are, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little about DFA?
I'm Fred Gardneour. I'm the president of DFA Insurance. We've been around for about 40 years doing specialty work with the security guard, private investigation, and alarm business. We, over that period of time, have seen a lot, done a lot, and helped a lot of companies be able to not only get their business started, but expand their business into areas that they didn't even know existed before.
So Fred, are you telling me that a security guard company can't just go out to Allstate and State Farm and get like a really good policy?
No, they can get a policy. It just won't cover anything. Allstate and State Farm do not sell security, private investigator, or alarm coverage. They've never done that. There are a couple of companies out there that advertise online. They're cheap, okay? You have to be real careful. One of them is called Next, and the other one's called Biberk, B-I-B-E-R-K. And if you type those in, both of them are .coms, and you type those in, it'll bring up a screen that lets you get a quote online, okay? And people think this is great. And then when they see the price, they think this is even better. Now, let me tell you the problem. I've read both those policies. And on page 67 on one and page 72 of the other one, it tells you that this will not cover bodily injury or property damage. Well, if you've got a general liability policy, that's what they do. That's what it covers. Now, if you're just trying to get licensed, the state doesn't know the difference between those two companies and any other company. But if you have a problem, or you sign a contract with somebody, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look at the carrier and they go, we won't accept this, because they already know that those policies won't cover what they want covered, okay? Assault and battery is the big issue right now. Assault and battery is excluded from companies like Mesa, companies like Kinsell. So we get calls all the time from a third-party vendor that has referred people to us because they know the policies that we write do not exclude those coverages. And so you can't have a contract with that particular company, single source, Protos, without having assault and battery covered. So at the end of the day, that's where I get into my all policies are not created equal. And so the first thing you need to do is look at the exclusions on that policy to see actually what it's covered and what it's not. So that would be my advice. But no, Allstate, State Farm are not where you need to go. Farmers is not where you need to go. Those are great if you've got an office and you're trying to get your contents and your slip and fall covered. Those are great policies for that. They're just not very good for anything else. So, and there's some good companies. They just don't like writing security and private investigation.
So at one point you were doing reviews of policies for security guard companies. Is that something that you're still doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I have people call me all the time, tell me that they're with a company. I don't necessarily recognize the company as a name brand carrier. So I'll ask them to send me a copy of their policy, which is usually 98 to 120 pages. It doesn't take long to go through it because I'm not reading everything. I'm looking at the exclusions and then I'm going to those excluded endorsement pages, look and see what that endorsement actually says. And so instead of the whole policy, I'll read about 12 pages worth, and I can tell you pretty much by that time, I can tell you whether it's worth anything or it's not. If it's worth anything, we probably already write with that company. But there are occasions when one pops up that I've not heard of before. And it turns out that it's a subsidiary or a sister company of one of the other ones, like Scottsdale, for instance, is a division of Nationwide. Well, Nationwide doesn't want to put their name on anything to do with security, but Scottsdale will, okay, because that's their market for that. But you got to be careful about a Scottsdale policy because they want to exclude things like apartment. They don't like habitational at all. And so if you've got a Scottsdale policy, it's going to have an exclusion probably that says we will not cover you for anything to do with where people live. And so if you're a guard company that wants to patrol apartments, that policy is going to create you a problem. Okay.
Perfect. So talking about policies, so that's some of the stuff that some of these companies exclude. What's the newest thing that's going on in the industry? What policies should security guard companies be looking to add to their insurance coverage?
Well, first off, the three policies that are always, well, four policies that are always the standard in the industry is general liability, whether you're a new company starting or you've been around for a while, okay, and you're a bigger company. You need to look at your general liability and what you're paying for it. You need to look at your umbrella policy and what you're paying per $1 million. What you're paying for your workers' comp, that's always going to be an issue. And then, of course, commercial auto. Now, the one policy out of that four that's getting squeezed right now is commercial auto. There's fewer and fewer markets that's writing security guard coverage for auto. And so we have to be diligent and creative in order to make sure we get these fleet of cars. If you've got one car, it's a little different. If you've got 100 cars, totally different issue. So we are always on the lookout for new auto markets that we can develop in order to keep that coverage going. And in the past, I have done everything from help a company take on that program, get reinsurance for it, and then we put that out in the marketplace, and it worked very well for a number of years, but until that company sold, the insurance company. So there's always more than one way to fix a problem. You've just got to make sure that you're with a problem solver, okay, and not a problem creator. Because a lot of agents, if they don't know what to do or where to go, they throw up their hands and go, well, I'm sorry, it's just not my problem. Well, yeah, it is. If you brought this client this far along, you need to do everything that you can do to help them out.
I heard that. So you were talking about coverages, and recently I've heard you talk about cyber coverage. Now, cyber coverage, is that something that, as a software company, we have cyber insurance, but security guard companies, is that something that they need to worry about?
Cyber coverage is usually required by a client that your client has. So if you're a security company and you get a contract that has, say, BH management, okay? Several of the BH management contracts. Now, BH management is a management company that handles apartments, they handle office complexes, they handle shopping centers, okay? And if you want to do business to guard those particular items, and BH management is the management company, I'll almost guarantee you they're going to come back and ask for cyber. So the next question out of the box is, what is cyber? Well, cyber coverage is designed to protect the client. your client against a hack, okay? Because your guard opened a Trojan horse and let a hacker into their back office. The best example I can give you is this. This is a true story. By the way, Courtney will tell you, I've never told a story that wasn't a true story. It happened. In this particular case, there is a electrician that goes into a Target. He's doing some work on a control panel. He asks for the Wi-Fi access so that he can contact the electrical company on Wi-Fi. They give it to him. I mean, it's a simple request. That Target got hacked, and they had $10-12 million of exposure. So they tracked it back, and they found out that the Trojan horse came through that electrician's phone because his phone wasn't secure. And they sued him for the total amount of their loss and put him out of business. You're a security company and you're going, well, that's not going to happen to me. Okay. Here's what's going to happen. You've got a guard that's doing late night duty at an office building. He either gets bored or he gets bored. So he has his laptop. He finds the Wi-Fi password. He opens his laptop up. He gets on the internet. He's surfing. He's doing all that stuff. Next thing you know, there is somebody that starts messing with the air conditioning and heating, the oxygen, because this was a hospital. And he kept, whoever it was, kept switching nitrogen, oxygen in operating rooms. He was cutting off different things. He was jacking with the air conditioning and heating. They spent close to $30,000 trying to figure out why the system was doing this. It was determined that because the security guard opened up his laptop, got through the Wi-Fi system, and it was unsecure, it was determined that he let the Trojan horse in. And so there was a hacker that was sitting in his apartment in his underwear. And I'll tell you why that's important. He was sitting in his apartment in his underwear, and he was playing with this system and cutting it on and off. FBI tracked it all the way back to his apartment, broke down the door, and there he is sitting on the couch in his underwear, eating popcorn and pushing buttons. And every time you push a button, something different would happen. And so that hacker, by the way, is doing federal time. The security guard company, on the other hand, got hit for the $30,000 it took them to find the problem, and lost the account because they allowed an unsecured device into their system, and that was something that they weren't supposed to do. But somebody gave him that. You understand that somebody in their operation that he got to know gave him that password. Well, you can't control that. That's not a part of. I mean, you can tell people all day long, don't give out our password, but you can't control it. So cyber, to get back to our topic, cyber protects not only you against somebody hacking your systems, but it also protects your client in case somebody did something that they shouldn't have, and you wound up being the fall guy for the Trojan horse. So it becomes real important. And I can tell you that if you want $1 million cyber, it's relatively inexpensive. If you want $5 million of cyber, it gets more expensive and more intrusive as to what the company wants you to have in place.
So when I had my security guard company, somehow or another, employee got a hold of our routing number and account number and was using that to pay bills, right? Their personal bills.
Correct.
Is there a policy that someone can put in place to like cover that? So if your payroll manager is doing something illicit and illegal, does your general liability cover that, or is there some other type of coverage that covers that?
General liability protects the general public against bodily injury or property damage by you or one of your employees. It's designed to protect the general public. If you need something to protect them and you, then what you need is a fidelity policy, third-party fidelity or crime cover, okay? That's the other policy that Courtney and I talked about. Example, I had Courtney gave you one. I had a client that hired a lady for in his accounting department. She hired her sister to come in and help. They got together and decided there would be a great way to steal money. So they developed a whole set of employees that didn't exist. They had a third person that worked at a grocery store where they could take these payroll checks and take them and cash them. Okay. The client did not get wind of this theft for about a year and a half. By the time he found it, it was $315,000 in. And so he called me because he panicked because it wound up being his payroll tax money that they had shifted so that he wouldn't know about the immediate loss. The third-party fidelity or crime policy stepped in, had both of them arrested. They convicted, both of them are doing time, but then they also reimbursed him for the $315,000 that he was out. It literally saved his company from bankruptcy and a terrible fight with the IRS because, yeah, you could go to him and tell him this money got stolen from you, but the IRS is going to go, well, that sounds real bad. I'm real sorry. Now, when are you going to write us a check? Yeah. So he was more than pleased that we were able to find coverage, but that comes under a separate policy. Those are the ways that you cover those things. Now understand that and I tell people this all the time, if it is insurance, there is a way to get it done, okay? You just have to get with somebody that's creative enough sometimes to figure out a way to make it fit, okay? I had a call today about somebody that had a client that promised him $3 million contract, and then turned out they paid the guard company with bogus funds. And they were concerned because they were trying to figure out a way to collect it under their general liability. I said, there's no way to collect it. General liability doesn't protect you against a client stealing from you. It's to protect the client from you stealing from them. So, it's difficult to have to tell somebody that, but if they had third-party fidelity or crime cover, you could probably figure out a way to get part of it paid underneath that policy. The only policy I know of they can do that with.
Well, I'm gonna have to talk to you about that one because we need that. So a lot of this stuff is really scary stuff. So if there's somebody out there who's interested in, finding someone who can get creative to help them get covered, how do they find you?
Well, you can go to OfficerReports.com, which is our website, and it has all of our information on it, including our phone number and email. DFAinsure@gmail.com is our email address.
Well, again, Fred, this has been enlightening as always. I have a couple more stories to tell people now, so thank you for that. Now I'm going to take credit for them, but whatever.
I didn't originate them, Courtney.
All right.
Help yourself, buddy.
Thanks. It's been a great one. You have a good afternoon, and we'll talk later.
Thanks, Courtney.